right. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone's hearing me okay here. Let me just make sure yep, I'm all connected. So, all right. Well, hey, thank you for jumping on and being with us today. Just before we get going, any questions that you want to talk about before I jump into what we have planned for today?
I actually have something, but it might be one that's better just to talk with. It's about if I'm representing a buyer who has a house to sell, but he's doing it by himself in another place. And I just, like if it's contingent and, I have some questions there to make sure that it's done appropriately on my end. So, I mean, I can see some potential red flags that could happen with them not having having an agent. They're really good friends and they just don't want to use an agent. So just wondering your thoughts on things that I need to be aware of.
So let me just make sure I understand. So you're saying that they're selling it for sale by owner, but to just like a family friend or something like that?
Yep. And
okay.
I'm going to help on the purchase side here. But they're not here. So they're actually in a different part of the state where I wouldn't represent them anyway. And so they're not they want to, of course, save the 6%, which we've talked about the positives and negatives of those types of things. But they, he really wants to do that. He's done it several transactions like that in the past. And so he's not worried about it, though I'm worried about it for him.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I would just say you would just want to make sure any offers you're doing that you're just making it subject to the sale of his property, and you'll be disclosing that it's not listed and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, and then just staying in touch with them about the transaction. So,
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I had a question, and maybe since I wasn't on morning meetings this week, I this may be repetitious, but it sounds like nationally there's a big lot of news saying that home prices are going to skyrocket, and we've been kind of told the opposite. But again, I've been not as involved.
Yeah, one of the things I would recommend, so if you go to our YouTube channel, so if you just go to YouTube and search Century 21 Everest Training, you'll see on there a playlist for our base camps. And Christopher Jensen, who is the president of Inspiro Financial, did a base camp a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he went through and outlined like all the data to support what you were saying, Rebecca, which is that we're going to see another run up in home prices again because of, and then he gives all the detail of explaining why that prediction is that it's going to happen again. And
that's
so
fabulous. Well,
yeah,
I'm
really good.
familiar
It's called
with that.
Why Buy Now? Why Buy Now?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, Why Buy Now is what it was called. So,
and his name was what?
It's Christopher Jensen.
Okay, great. So, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. But yeah, so take a look at that.
Oh, and thank all the brokers for Cowabunga. That was just the neatest thing for my son. The one struggling with stage 4 cancer. Yeah. It was really neat and got some great pictures. So thanks again.
Oh, good. Well, that's great. Yeah, thanks.
Ross, question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been trying to find in the Century 21 training online, I've been trying to find the last base camp from George Morris, and I couldn't find anything.
I'll have to look and see. Did he do that this week?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's why.
I don't know if he pushed record.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'll double check, but I was out of town, and so I honestly kind of forgot about it. But I'll take a look at it.
So it's yet to come then?
Yet to come.
All
If
right.
it was recorded, it sounds like. So I'll make sure. I'll check that
All
after
right.
this. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, good. So here's what I thought I would talk about today is I'm going to do a screen share here so that I can just show you. This is an exciting topic here that now I got to find where it's at on my screen. There we go. All right. Hopefully you're able to see the screen there. So what I thought would be good to talk about is we're not going to spend a ton of time necessarily on fair housing, but I want to just talk a little bit about what is okay to talk about and what is not okay. But before that, thought it would be helpful to cover a couple of other things. So you can see on my screen here about who is protected. And so thought it would be good to do a reminder about who's protected under the Fair Housing Act. And it's going to be anything that any of the anyone that falls into the protected classes. I couldn't think of the word protected classes. Any of the protected classes based on race, color, national origin, their religion, their sex, including gender identity and sexual orientation, familial status, and then disability. So I'm sure that is something that everybody probably remembers and you guys know, but thought it would be good to remind that. And part of the reason for the reminder of that is tied to also this that I wanted to share. And so
Could I just add one? Because in the state of Utah, it's a protected class as far as source of income.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then the other thing that goes hand in hand with this that I wanted to add as well is in our code of ethics, just this year, so it was amended in January of 2023 right here, was Article 10. And what it says is realtors shall not deny equal professional services to any person for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Realtors shall not be parties to any plan or agreement to discriminate against a person or persons on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Realtors in their real estate employment practices shall not discriminate against any person or persons on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And then just the other thing that they added to it was the standard of practice 10.5, which says realtors shall not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Now, and the reason I bring this up to you is we actually had an agent within our, oh, I didn't share that. I was reading that the whole time and you guys couldn't see it. Apologize. There it is. So we had a complaint filed against one of our agents just recently that on social media, there was a news article. So one of the local news stations had posted a news story, and the agent from our company went on there and made some comments about it, which another realtor saw and said, I'm going to report you to the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, which they did. The Salt Lake Board of Realtors then passes that on to the grievance committee, who looks over to say, is that a violation? So what happened is the comment they had made could have been perceived against one of these protected classes. And of course, the agent is saying they don't believe that it was, but the whole point of this is if somebody files a complaint, the grievance committee is going to look at that to decide, was it a violation of the code of ethics, which really actually potentially could have been viewed maybe even as a somewhat, I guess, not a fair housing violation, because it was not having to do with the real estate. But just again, this 10-5 is we should not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on any of those things. So the question is, did they do that and violate the code of ethics based on that? And so there will be a hearing that what will take place is a board or a panel of the peers will decide if it was or wasn't a violation. But again, back to talking about in terms of advertising and protected classes and those type of things, just a reminder also that there are testers that are going to go out and test you, or maybe I should say us as agents, to see if we will violate that. And so just kind of so you know how that works, typically what they're going to do is they're going to get two people that would contact you, and probably not necessarily back to back, meaning it's not like you're going to get a phone call, hang up and get another phone call, but within a few days of each other based on a listing that you have or some type of marketing that you've done. And what will happen is one will call you and ask questions about the property and not include something about one of the protected classes. The other person that will then call you asks very similar questions to what the other person did, but the only difference of what they would ask in terms of, and not that they'll ask the exact questions, but similar type questions about the property, but then the one will throw in something about a protected class to see how you're going to respond. So kind of just keep in mind that as you are dealing with that and you're getting phone calls about properties, of really the best thing to do, and then I would even tie this back to your advertising as well, is you want to make sure that you're talking about the features of the home and not who the home would be a good fit for. So a lot of times we'll see agents do marketing and they'll put things of, kid friendly. Well, kid friendly could be then a violation of the fair housing, because you're making it sound like, well, if you don't have kids, then it's not going to be very friendly or whatever. So we can't put anything that would call out either, the familial status in that case of, hey, this would be great for a family. So even just saying great family home is not something you could advertise. Putting that it's located close to a church, or in the case here in Utah, a lot of times people would say close to the temple. You can't put things like that in terms of your advertising. So what I thought I'd do is just talk
But you
to
could
you.
put close to many denominations if you're looking for that. But
Well,
that's
so
pushing it.
I was going to say that potentially even could be, because what if somebody is non-denominational?
Yeah.
They don't have any denominations that they
Right.
affiliate with. So again, really what you want to just do, you could put convenient location, and leave it at that. But as far as advertising that it's close to a church, or, those type of things could be perceived as fair housing. So anyway, what I thought I would share with you is just some basic advertising guidelines. And in fact, I'll share the screen with you. This is just off the National Fair Housing website that I pulled this up.
I've had them call me, and man, quite a few times, and they make it rather difficult, but I've always passed.
Yeah, they try to trip you up.
It's like her source of income's welfare, and she has a very strong African accent, and it but the only thing I went with is income to debt ratio. I said I don't have anyone at those low numbers, and I won't accept anyone that's at least this income to debt ratio. Do you feel like that is pushing it?
No, I think as far as it's based on qualification, you're going to be fine. It's because, somebody would have to qualify for the purchase of the house. But yeah, I think you just want to be careful. Really, in those scenarios, I would say, you know what, your best thing is, let's get you with the lender to find out how much you can qualify for. It doesn't matter where that income is coming from. And we'll see where we can find you a home based on that price range. So.
Yeah, it's tricky. I even had an eviction on a tenant that was Middle Eastern. And I didn't even realize that the next tenant was also Middle Eastern. But when they found out, they backed off because it was all like I'd even helped this person figure out the bus lines and everything. And I just thought, wow,
Yeah.
they were just after money. But that was just subconsciously, I protected myself, even though I didn't realize I had.
Yep. Got to be careful. So, okay. So here's some basic advertising guidelines is just make sure your advertising is compliant with fair housing laws. And again, this is off the National Fair Housing website. And you're going to make sure it's compliant by focusing on the property and the amenities in your, and this says rental listing, but in your listing of your sale, not on who you think an ideal purchaser would be. Don't make statements that exclude persons in protected classes or express a preference for one personal characteristic over others. Always include the fair housing logo and or equal housing opportunity slogan in your advertising. So as I was prepping for this and was reading through different things, I did see something that kind of said actually even having the equal housing opportunity as part of your, or using the fair housing logo as part of your advertising will actually help if you had something that was a borderline of, ooh, that could be perceived as being against the fair housing, that they were saying because of having the logo or the equal housing opportunity slogan in your advertising is going to tip the scale more in your favor if it was questionable. So that's an idea for you. Don't exclude from your marketing campaign persons in protected classes, such as families with children, people of certain racial or ethnic backgrounds, persons with disabilities, etc. So again, just if you have pictures that you're doing in advertising, try to be diverse as you do that, not having it look like every single post that you do about a house for advertising shows, a white male or whatever. Just, make sure you're being diverse in how you're doing that is one of the recommendations. Again, did I read this one already? Yeah, if you feature human models in your advertisement, ensure the images are inclusive and representative of all communities that need access to housing. Always give truthful information about the availability, the price, amenities, and features of a housing unit. And your advertising goals should be gain important critical exposure to consumers, maximize positive outcomes, and broaden, don't restrict your market. I think that's probably the best way of saying it is, one of the things that I did have a client one time telling me, hey, this certain group of people seem to be moving into this neighborhood. And so when I sell my house, I want to make sure that it doesn't go to somebody of that ethnic background. And I just at that point said to them, at the end of the day, what matters is their money is going to be green. It doesn't matter anything else from that. So you can't make a decision. And if you are going to base your decision off of who you're going to sell your house to other than the price, basically the color of the money that's going to come in, then I am not the agent to help you. And they then understood and say, yeah, that makes sense. I understand, and I don't want to violate any of the fair housing laws. So they then did end up actually selling their house to someone from the particular protected class that they said they didn't want to sell to. So it all worked out okay. But anyway, so just a reminder, as you're doing that, be inclusive in what you're doing in terms of advertising. And as far as when you get people calling you and asking questions, don't base any of the decisions off of any protected classes. You can base it off of, can they qualify? But outside of that, it can't be based on, oh, you wouldn't like living here because all the kids that are in the neighborhood or lack of kids or any of those type of things. So I don't know. Any thoughts, questions, comments?
So what you're saying, Ross, if somebody like you said, there is whatever is their own responsibility to do their own due diligence to see who's there or if they like it or they don't, but not necessarily coming from the agent.
Yeah, for sure. You cannot be saying to anybody, oh, I don't know if you'll like living here because of anything that has to do with any of those protected classes that we talked about.
All right.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you all for jumping on. I think it's not something that we're seeing regularly where we're seeing problems with this from people, but just good reminder, and especially based on the fact that, like I say, we did have that complaint about something that somebody had done on social media. So I did want to give the reminder on that of, even though that had nothing to do with being a realtor, the fact that on this agent's social media said that they were a realtor, the concern is it could look like that, hey, based on that comment, you're not willing to work with somebody. So even though it wasn't a real estate advertising thing, the fact of what he or she was commenting online was turned in as, hey, this could be a violation of Article 10 of our Code of Ethics. And quite honestly, I think she will be found or he or she will be found in violation of our Code of Ethics and probably end up paying a fine for that. So anyway, so just be conscious of what you're doing, and thanks for jumping on. Tracy, do you have a question? Yep. You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I just want to know, we've seen in the news of like celebrities losing their jobs because they posted something, and we're online and just out there so much more. Do they go back into your Facebook, like, or before you were a realtor or anything like that?
So good
I don't
question.
think that I'm, I don't think I violate any of those, but I know one statement I did say, and it was just funny because of our life. And so I found out that, oh, I did not realize that that might offend somebody, because I would never intentionally do that. But how
Sure.
far back do they go?
So good question. As far as with our Code of Ethics, it has to be within 180 days. So a Code of Ethics type of a thing, and very unlikely somebody's gonna go searching to find something. Like I say, in this particular one, it was the agent had made a comment, and then the next comment after theirs was, I'm turning you into the Salt Lake Board. So, it was right away. But yeah, 180 days is the time frame for violations on the Code of Ethics. As far as a fair housing issue, though, I think in Utah, it is 1 year. They go that if it happened within a year, you could be that somebody could file a complaint. I think nationally it would be 2 years, and I think I'm pretty sure I got that right. So I think it's 1 year for the state of Utah, but nationally, which doesn't make sense. You'd think those would line up, but it was 2 years. So
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Russ.
Okay. Thanks for being on, guys. Have a great weekend.